worldwide marketplace, 75% of the time, the aspects of accommodation, inclusion, accessibility, when you look at it through the fiscal year, there is negligence to be found. There is an easy way, an easy pathway to show how we are falling way short from where we ought to be. It's a weird nuance out there, ladies and gentlemen. And through the world of ability, we aim to drive the narrative because somebody's got to. We have to turn a corner. We have to make a paradigm shift. We have to look at our ethics. We have to look at what we're doing with our youth, our children, and people that are going through higher education. What are we doing to mandate with educators that with whatever somebody's getting a degree in, that every person getting a degree knows what it is to do what they do by, with, and for in cooperation, and in exchange of asking the person with a disability how their trade and their field works best for them, and from where they are, the entirety of the disability community. This is about reaching out to self-advocates instead of being in a world where we just kind of move out without the disability community, and then we just kind of let them out there like they're out in left field, and they're making their battle cries of nothing about us without us, you know, and trying to burst the bubble of the disability community and reach people who don't have a disability to make sure that they're learning about disability etiquette, preferred language, people first language. Folks, this is something that I can relate to. 20 years ago, in the neighborhood of time when I met Dariush Ashtari, you know, I was not aware of these dynamics. It was not what Dariush and I were talking about when we first met. It took us reuniting in the recent handful of years to culminate together and say, this is what our collaboration is going to mean. This is what we're doing. We are reshaping the world, the digital space, the landscape on the web, to be like, once and for all, people with disabilities are at the front of the line. Dariush, I know you're very passionate about this topic. I know that you really bring a lot to the table in terms of web content accessibility guidelines, and you've got a tremendous perspective about how professionals through the Happy Neighborhood Project and beyond can take a look at making work product make sense for people with disabilities. So Dariush, come on in here and tell us more about your philosophy of making commercial work product and making entrepreneurial activities more friendly for people with disabilities.
Thank you, Kurt. There is a definition for the disability, and there is a misunderstanding. Most of the people that they call themselves abled instead in opposite of disabled, they have a mentality that disabled people cannot do anything. But this is a very broad concept, and so many times many disabilities are not visual. You cannot see them. You cannot see it. Like high astigmatism or color blindness. Only that person that has this problem knows it. And sometimes even that person do not know it himself, that high astigmatism is considered as a disability, or he is colorblind. I was born like this. I always had a quarrel with people about the color of things and say, no, they said, you have problems. I said, no, I'm fine. You go to the doctor and see what's wrong with you. Then I found out, okay, the others are okay. I have problem, and my problem is color blindness. I see some colors different. Some colors I cannot see. There are sometimes some text that is written in the way I cannot read it. And sometimes I can see things that other people cannot see because my eyes look different, work different. And it is good to know people that if they have any problem, any issue, go to the experts and try to figure it out. What is the problem? Is everything fine, or they have some disabilities? Because knowing that will help you understand, will help you solve so many of your personal problems. Instead of saying all the time, this guy is doing that, this is, I always having conversations, quarrels over something. Yeah, okay, my eye has a problem. If you think this is okay, or okay. And vice versa. I've seen people that doing ADA compliance auditing, and they have not seen a colorblind person in their whole life. They have not seen someone with high astigmatism in their whole life. All they do is to check the website based on a checklist. They actually do not know how a person with visual problem see the things. They don't know someone with color blindness see how they see the world, the colors. The person that I was talking to, he thought that colorblind people see the world black and white. And he wanted to recommend someone that he was auditing his websites to change the color of his websites to the black and white so that colorblind people can see. I told her, I'm colorblind. I'm not. Only 3% of colorblind people see the world black and white. Others see but differently. And I have seen widgets and tools that are offered by some websites that use this widget put it on your website, and it makes your website ADA compliant. And some of them, I don't believe the developers have ever seen someone with any kind of disabilities. They have put so many options that are useless, and some options that are needed for someone who has a color, like me, that I'm a colorblind, they don't have it. Just providing a bunch of icons and buttons for doing so many different things does not mean that this widget makes the website ADA compliant. If someone has a website and wants to make his website ADA compliant, it is better to consult with someone that has visual disability. These people can tell these recommendations are correct or not. Is this widget okay or not? I've seen widgets, they charge website owners so much every month, but that is useless. And not only it is not ADA compliant, it is not WCA, it is not compliant with PCI DSS or any standard. Consulting with real experts before doing anything is very important. Unfortunately, it is hard to find, but this is very important, because if a website, it may happen to them, to any website owner, that they spend so much for auditing and making changes that the auditor recommends, but they don't actually make a website ADA compliant, and any disabled person can, based on the law in the US, can go and sue them. And all the money that they have spent is gone. Was nothing. Back to you, Kurt.
Hey, thank you so much, Dariush. That gives a fantastic background. And we have Denise Vargas here from Live Creatively Inc. She's always, they're saying to always live creatively, redesign your life, she says. So, Denise, you raised your hand for a comment question. What do you got, Denise?
Yes, thank you. I had a question for Dariush. I know that oftentimes, actually it's two questions. I know that oftentimes people are afraid to audit their website for accessibility because they're afraid of the expense. Could you speak a little bit more on the cost of making your website accessible and the cost of not making your website accessible? By not doing it now, what will it cost?
That's a good question. The cheapest way is to ask the developer from the very beginning that they want to make the website ADA compliant. This is the cheapest way because from the very beginning, the coding is done that way. There are, for those who all use open source CMSs, there are plugins, this stuff, but actually those plugins are not important. They don't do anything seriously. The most important thing on the ADA compliance is the coding and the design. The design part is that, for example, for people that has high visual disability, the buttons must have high contrast between the background of the button and the text of the button. The text must be big enough for people to see it, or if it is the design is to use a small fonts, there must be some options, some widgets, something to help them to make the font of the text page bigger or smaller. And this is for the visual part, but not all parts of the ADA compliance is about the visual stuff, because there are people that are blind or are deaf. And for these people, there are special types of codings must be implemented in the design of the interface. So if someone blind is accessing the page, their computer has a narrator. They can talk to the computer, open the page, open the URL, open the browser, go to the website. The computer, the browser reads the links, and then, okay, now they want to read the page, the content, the narrator reads it. How it reads it, how the narrator separates advertisements from the content. This is what that is done in the design part, in the design of the HTML part. And I haven't seen any plugin who do that correctly for WordPress or other open source CMSs. But when you order a custom coded website and you ask, I want it ADA compliant, it is much cheaper, because if you order something, then say, okay, now I want to make it ADA compliant. What should be done? You must ask for an auditor to audit the website. Now, this auditor knows what to do, how a disabled person is going to use it, because sometimes people's hands, that's another kind of disability, that the people's hands shake so much. There must be this, some space between the buttons so that they can click on the right button that they want. There must be specific kind of design for the reading the text or other parts. All of these must be audited. Now the auditor knows what he's doing, or he's just following a checklist. And for the auditing, they charge so much. You have a ready website, you want to make those changes to it, you have to pay again.
So someone who creates their own website, so I completely understand what you're talking about with programmers, but say someone like myself, who I created my own website using a platform like Wix, and I know that a lot of people, they might use Squarespace, they might use, there's so many sources out there, WordPress that you've mentioned, where a person can make their own website, but now you're realizing by speaking to others that it may not be, or it probably isn't, ADA compliance. How does one then fix that?
You cannot do that. You can switch your hosting to another company, because we had this issue with another website to a website of one of the team members. We contacted I provided all the information and told her to ask the support. We need this kind of access so that we can make the required changes to make the pages ADA compliance. They refuse to offer that kind of access. This is the service, this is the templates, you can use them as it is. You cannot make any changes to that. So Wix or page builders or these, they do not provide, you cannot make them ADA compliant. The maximum thing is maybe you can insert a widget somewhere, maybe, I'm not sure. But just putting that widget does not make your website ADA compliant.
I see. So then at that point, it's something that those platforms need to provide that service for the person, for the
this is not the obligation of those companies. They
ah,
provide a service as it is. You can use, if you want, you can use it as it is. If you want to make a change to it, you must use another service.
I see. And now, when I spoke about the cost of not having a website accessible or ADA compliant, what, in your professional opinion or thoughts, what would be the legalities that could come upon that company by not having their website ADA compliant?
Sorry, please ask your question again. I didn't get it correctly.
Sure. So if I had a company, if my website is seen to not be accessible,
okay,
what legal ramifications can come to me by either the government, or can a person sue me? I guess that's really my question. Can
any kind of, every single disabled person who see your website, they can sue you.
Oh,
legally. You are in the California, right?
I'm in New York.
You're in the New York. I don't know about the law in the New York, but they can sue you. How much, I don't know.
Okay, so for example, then when you mentioned California, any disabled person in California could sue that company for not being ADA compliant?
Anyone, anywhere in the world.
So if the company is
in the look, in the United States, anyone can sue you, can sue your website. Any disabled person can sue your website as it is not ADA compliant. I wanted to use this service, this website. There was information and I needed to access to it, but I cannot use it. They can sue you.
Wow. So, and does that mean that anyone in the world can also sue? Because we're speaking about
no, not anyone in the world. anyone in any country, in their own country.
Ah, mm, I see. So because I'm located in New York, but I am in the States, so anybody in the States can sue me.
Anyone in the States can sue you. I asked about if you are in the California or not, because I know in California there are the amount of the lawsuits against the websites exceeds $100 million.
Now, is there a way to prevent possible legal ramifications? So for example, if I put on my website in review for ADA compliancy or something, will that protect me?
Look, if someone sues you, you have to go to you go to the court. You can provide document that, okay, I know I'm doing this. These are the documents that I hired someone to audit and see what shall I do in order to make my website ADA compliant, and I'm following this, and it will be solved. Okay, the court will give you some time to do that, and then they will review it.
I see. Okay, so that will at least buy me some time until I can at least make sure that it's done correctly.
If you have a good lawyer, yes.
Yeah, that would help, right? Wow, this is so informative, Dariush. Thank you so much. And my other question was, I know that we keep saying ADA because, you know, we are here in the US, but you are not in the US. And so what is the equivalent to the ADA in other parts of the world?
The standard is WCAG, World Content Accessibility Guideline. Web content accessibility guideline. These are the detailed instructions for how to have a website accessible for people with different kind of disabilities. The ADA law that you have in the US is not just for the web. It is very general. It applies to there has sections on it for example, buildings, entrance of the buildings, elevators, open spaces, everything. But WCAG is for the web content.
I see. So that's actually a more specific term that we probably should be using more so than just ADA, because especially since we are talking the internet, and so many people now are doing business virtually. We've moved into that virtual world because of the pandemic, and you know, I don't see it ending. Of course, I hope the pandemic ends, but I don't see the virtual work ending, the remote work. And there are so many nomads out there, digital nomads that just work from anywhere. So knowing this information is really vital. And I think that we should really start using the correct terminology rather than using ADA, because it is worldwide. You know, when you're talking about the internet, I can be located here in New York, but someone in Armenia could be looking at my website. So, and I can do business with someone there. So it's something that we should really start using the right terminology. So I appreciate that. And now my last question for you, Dariush, and thank you for your time and thank you for being here with us. My last question is, what does an audit look like? So if I have this website and I have all these tabs and pages and my calendars, you know, my scheduler, what does the audit look like and what can I expect?
It is an analysis for every single page of your website. What are the problems for visual problems, the technical problems from the ADA aspect only. Now, if there is a missing tags that apply for the SEO, it does not apply. The colors, how it must look like, how the buttons, the size of the buttons, the size of the fonts, text. For example, if you see in my design, behind the back Osgood security logo, there is a white box. And behind the Purple Bees logo, there is nothing. Behind the name of the Aranet, there is nothing. Purple Bees and Aranet, these are the logos, but not the text. If there were text, this was not ADA compliant. This is wrong. Because when there is an image, if there is a gradient, whatever, behind the text, people with visual disabilities, high astigmatism, or color blindness may not be able to read the text. For the buttons, you must not use gradients. Hover must not have a gradient. When you move the mouse pointer over a button, the color in some web designs, the color changes. This color change must not be a gradient of the color. There must be a very high contrast between the text and the background. Such kind of things. Is this correct or not? Buttons, everything, the forms.
Okay. So if I'm correct in what I heard is, did you say that certain colors are harder for people with visual challenges?
Look, if there is a view of a city, a tree, or such a background that I have, if I want to write something on it, I must use a background on it. Otherwise, I cannot read the text because I have astigmatism too. I am not just colorblind, I have high astigmatism too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you also mentioned before that someone that may have physical challenges, like like even Parkinson's, where you shake, having something that is too close together, like a link on top of another link that's too close together, you may shake and not be able to click on the proper link.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, this was great information. I learned so much, and I hope that our audience is listening and taking note. Yeah, let's make the World Wide Web accessible to all.
There is a 2,000-page guideline for that.
Awesome. Yeah.
You must read.
And now, are you certified to be able to make all these audits and
No.
No? Okay. And now how do we find someone that is certified, that we don't just want to hire anyone that's, oh, I know how to do websites and I can make them ADA compliant?
There are two types of people. Those who, if someone has, I can do that because I myself am a colorblind person and I have visual disability, both color blindness and high astigmatism. Okay, those who are certified must have passed some tests inside the U.S. and they can do it in the states that they live, because there are some adaptations between the states. You are in New York, you have to find someone in New York to do that. Anyone can do the audit for you. I can do the audit for you. Anyone can do the audit for you. If you want a certified person, those people are usually not disabled. They usually do not have any kind of disability. They just follow a checklist. And therefore, it is better to consult with a disabled person too, to make sure those checklists are done correctly.
That's an interesting point. So anyone can do an audit it is preferred to do it by someone that has disabilities. But I guess my question is, do we really need, like for legal reasons, if we need someone that's certified to make the website compliant, then how do we know if that person doesn't have any challenges themselves? Like there are, there's nothing that they can relate to, in the disability community. How safe are we? I mean, I know you're saying that following a checklist, but is that checklist, I guess it's just interesting that you need to be certified to make sure that it's compliant, but anybody can do the audit.
There is a problem. There is a reality and there is a law. Legally, that for someone who is a certified auditor, they can audit it, give you some recommendations, and you follow, you give those instructions to the designer, because it is a matter of designing mostly. Give the designer and make the designer to apply those changes to your website. Legally, your website in that case is ADA compliant. If there is anything, you have documents, okay? This is the auditing report of the auditor, and based on all these audits, I have done this. But in reality, are those changes really correct, and someone with some sort of disabilities can use your website or not? This is another thing. Sometimes people want just to escape from legal boundaries, legal things. Okay, no one can sue me, that's enough for me. Someone wants to offer the service to as many people as possible. In that case, you need to consult with the disabled person. Hey, is this okay? Can you read this? Do you have any problem with that?
So my thought now, because this is so interesting, it makes you think about so many different things. Now, let's say that there's a company that really wants to make their website accessible for all, because they are true supporters of people with disabilities, but they're unaware, and then they hire an auditor to do the audit for them. They make the changes according to the checklist that the auditor follows, but then they find out later on that a person with a particular disability that may not have been in the checklist, especially because there's so many different things, some different challenges. We can't possibly know all of them to make sure that it's accessible to everyone. But this company really wants to be the pioneer in being helping those in our community. What can that person do to follow the guidelines and try and make it as accessible for everyone without feeling that someone is going to come at them and sue them?
The best way is, look, when your website is ADA compliant, it is. I told you it is a 2,000 page instructions, almost 2,000, around 2,000 and a little. And what is important is to, if you understand how a disabled person uses a website, uses the internet, uses the computer, you know what to do. few years ago, I had a project for an insurance company in the US, and that was a very good experience for me. From there, I found out that what kind of tools they provide to the blind people and how they use the internet. And they provided these informations to us because it helped us to understand how we must work and create the service for them. So anyone can use it, including people that are blind. Knowing that was very important and informative. No, people with Parkinson, people with any kind of issues, how these people are using the computers and what kind of tools are provided to them by the insurance companies or by the government, by the healthcare service and or other organizations. If the auditor is in direct contact with the community, they already know. Even if they don't know completely, they have an idea. They know what kind of users he must do the audit for, and how do they use the internet, how do they use the forms, how do they what is their habit, how do they work, with the internet and browser and things. So it will help them. The best way that if an organization wants to make its website, their website ADA compliant, is that they make sure that either that auditor cooperates with some disabled people, a colorblind person or person with high astigmatism, with Parkinson, with other physical disabilities that are connected to the computer and using the internet and keyboards and this stuff, to make sure that what he is auditing is not just a checklist. It is connected to the reality.
That's interesting. Wow, I really learned so much. So again, just so that I'm clear and our listeners are clear, you can perform audits and you can do the programming. But if we want to be legally protected, we need a certified person. Am I correct, or did I misunderstand?
It all depends on the state law.
I see. Okay, so we as each individual state needs to find out.
If your website, if a disabled person can use your website, it is ADA compliant.
Ah.
I am a programmer. I don't use WordPress. I don't use Magento. I don't use PrestaShop. Whatever is needed by my clients want, I do the coding for them.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my visual problem, I provide the necessary tools on the websites that I create. And so far, there have been no complaint about anything. Because sometimes they ask me, why did you do that? I wanted to make it look like this. I say, look, I have visual problem. I cannot read this. The way that you want is not ADA compliant. I cannot read this. If I cannot read that, be sure There are so many people that may not be able to read that and will cause you legal problems.
Mhm.
They'll accept. They have accepted, and so far there have been no problem. They are in the California, they were in the New York, Florida, these states.
Well, this was great information. I do hope that all our listeners are taking note and understanding the legalities that can come upon us by not having our websites accessible. And I know that there are so many people out there that, again, like I said, people that I know personally who are the most fabulous people who want to be part of our community, who want to be our allies and help us and grow with us. But we do need to make sure that our websites are compliant. And, I suggest that you reach out to Daryush. He seems like he is going to be the person to connect to and help you make sure that you're ADA compliant. And I kept saying ADA. And Daryush, what is the correct terminology? W,
WCAG.
W,
WCAG, there it is Web Content Accessibility Guideline. The latest version, as far as I know, is WCAG version 2.2, I think.
excellent. So there you have it. Daryush is the person to connect with. At least he can at least definitely do your audit, and he can make your site as compliant as it needs to be so that you are safe and you can continue to be our allies and our supporters. And let's make this world all inclusive for everyone. Back to you, Kurt.
All right. Thank you very much. That has been the most riveting conversation I have ever heard about taking a look at navigating decisions, dealing with the website and looking at it from different angles with different scenarios of what a website owner might be dealing with. Barbara, I want you to come in here from the perspective of whatever your use of websites are. I know that websites might not be your most favorite topic, but I think we all agree websites are one of the most useful things that we have at our fingertips. Barbara, are you out there? Are you able to join the conversation, coming off a mute and giving us your perspective of making the World Wide Web, web pages and web content friendly, and any of your experiences, Barbara? So,
Okay, can you hear me now?
yep, we hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I'm in the middle of a crazy storm here in beautiful Hollywood, Florida. I'm more a person that's on the phone, don't really have a computer, don't really have like the whole web going. Zoom calls, talking to people, looking at people. That's mostly how I can best communicate at this point in time. And oh gosh, what did I? Now I'm quite. Yeah, I need to become a much better communicator. I need to learn all the different angles of communication. It just seems a little overwhelming to me right now, with people blogging and Zooming and Instagramming and Messenger and and email, and how to keep the best connections so that we really are helping each other. I don't want to be someone that makes empty promises, like talking to Darush about trying to be helpful and then never exactly knowing what what I could do or how to go about doing things. But oh yes, here's what I thought was so important to share with everybody this week. And that was that I am finding the biggest challenge in my life right now is the one that says, here's the things we're praying for, right? The world, the way we want it to be. And then when it starts showing up exactly as we've been praying for it to be, and we start becoming really happy and seeing things going well, like to let that be, to go, it's okay. It's really okay to be this happy, or it really is okay to see things working really well. I don't have to get scared or try, to run from that. This is what we're visualizing and we're trying to bring into reality. And I'm seeing that happening. I'm seeing, my prayers being realized. And it's funny to see how, we might want to go back to where we were, comfortably not that excited, not that happy, not feeling that grateful, or, fear of losing it. But yeah, as far as understanding how important it is to have a website, I'm still pretty much in the dark about all this.
All right, fair enough, Barbara. So to transition away a little bit from all this deep dive into websites, I know you're always good, Barbara, to just talk in terms of refreshing parts of life and getting outdoors and taking advantage of the summer season yet, and being active. And then you've got your family, your grandkids, and
Yeah,
you got a lot
boy,
going on.
about to join the planet. This kid Riley, he's about to enter the world, going through his mom. Right now, it's exciting. But yeah, I see, for me, it took real courage to know there was this brilliant speaker, the Masterfast guy somewhere in Canada who's having like, a Facebook page and Zoom gathering. And it took me 2 years to actually let my face be shown, to jump in, to see myself as somebody with something important to contribute. And I'm listening a lot to TED Talks, and I'm seeing the best ways that we can be great leaders, like the people that make the Pixar movies, get Pixar happening together, and what Steve Jobs was doing. It says what we need to do is to create safe space, to create a stage, and then what you're doing, and then invite others to come in and believe in themselves, have some, self-esteem, and acknowledge their own greatness and share whatever they have to share, as difficult as it might seem, or as scary. Like, well, I'm used to people not understanding me, letting go of that thought. And this is how, yeah, what I'm seeing in the world around me right now, and how silly it is that it seems to take such an effort to just have people believe in themselves a little bit, to move the best ideas ahead. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, all good thoughts there. And just in terms of one thing you said there that's easy for me to build off of is you mentioned about people feeling good about themselves. I really think that that's a good way to explain, kind of what's in my craw for, why I'm so deliberate about what I'm doing, because I feel that, if 75% of population that is not those individuals that are identified as having a disability don't establish more opportunities that make sense in the right formats as prescribed by people with disabilities, as Daryush is saying. If you want to know if a website works for somebody with a disability, ask somebody with a disability. Don't ask Kurt Roskoff. Talk to Kurt Roskoff, but you're not done until you talk to somebody with a disability, because it's going to be through their lived experience. And it reminds me of when I got trained with rock climbing. We sat down with Adaptive Adventures, and one of the diverse ability athletes that does rock climbing, he pointed out, he's like, this is a great program. He's like, I can't go wrong with this program. But he said, we're talking about what might be helpful to the volunteers. And he said, let's think about this. A volunteer comes and takes what they've trained and then approaches me and says, okay, you got to do this. You got to do this. This is what we're going to do, and just running through the whole process like I'm just hopping on the bandwagon to their thing as the volunteer. And he's like, maybe we can think of backing up the train and saying, hey, I'm the one that has been living with this disability. I think I'm pretty good at looking at rock climbing and figuring out what it might look at. And for sure, I need the volunteer to be there, but maybe I can suggest to the volunteer how they're going to participate, and all the training and all that readiness they have just makes it all work better as I'm calling upon them, with my requests of what they might do rather than the other way around. And I thought that was very insightful. And I think Daryush is trying to point that out with websites, that sometimes we get the design process a little backwards. And so in terms of people feeling good about themselves, I think we have to take a look at our faith spaces and say, when somebody with a disability shows up in a faith space, what is it that they have in mind, and how could the entirety of the community make the faith experience better for them? When somebody with a disability shows up to a Rotary Club, a Lions Club, Optimist Club, Kiwanis Club, any volunteer club, name your favorite, one thing that happens is when people with disabilities show up, it's like a role definition that they're the ones that are going to receive the charity. They're not thought of as the ones that are going to do the community service and do the volunteering, but if that does connect, what does a volunteer experience look like for somebody with a disability? And in terms of a library experience, are our libraries and presenters at libraries for community education, are they formatting it ideally for people with disabilities? Or is that why they're not showing up in the library for those, experts of the topic, with the sharing of knowledge? Is it why people with disabilities are not showing up into those library rooms for those presentations? And how is the political process? Are people who are community organizers in politics, are they providing their grassroots efforts in an ideal way for people with disabilities to be strong voters, to be strong participants in the political party? I would suggest it could be very much improved because, again, the 75% of constituents aren't thinking of putting the drive of the political message into the purview of a person with a disability, and when we look at sports, hobbies, pastime, leisure activities, travel, when we think of employment, each of these things that we can check in on what we do with life, there's room like these websites to look at how we're executing it and to say we can all execute it better if we ask people with disabilities, how can the world do this better? I think every person with a disability has tremendous answers. We just have to seek them. And when we get to this point, when we turn that corner, I think everybody's going to be empowered to feel better about themselves, because I know that worked for me. I know in the last decade, I've been feeling a lot better about myself because I have felt very fortunate to be gifted experiences by people with disabilities. What do you think about that, Barbara?
Oh, what I'm thinking about that is, gosh, I wish I had audioed it, and then I would take the time and play things back. I know Scientologists, one of their first classes, they say, if you're trying to study something and all of a sudden you're no longer focused, you're no longer studying, you're not learning, you have to go back and you'll see that there was a word you didn't understand, or there was a concept that you didn't understand, and you need to look it up. And then you'd be able to go back into the excitement of learning something new. And, as I'm listening, and I wonder, if this relates at all to what you're saying, the story of the person who had a grocery store, and he had this idea he was going to put out a suggestion box or a criticism box, and then pay attention to what everybody was writing. And this one woman wrote, "You don't have fresh fish here. You don't sell fresh fish." And he said he could have so easily gone, "Oh, she's just stupid. Of course, yeah, we have fresh fish. What's she talking about? We get these fish every day." But instead of just chalking her off to being ignorant, he tried to follow her down and say, "What are you talking about? Why are you saying that?" And she said, well, she would think if it was fresh fish, it would be on ice. She'd come in, it wouldn't be all packaged and everything, but you'd see it on ice. And even though that didn't make the most sense to him, he decided to listen to that, and he started putting his fresh fish on ice, and all of a sudden his sales tripled, by listening to this one person that he would have, dismissed as, just being silly or not being bright or being too grouchy or all the negative things that we could say. And, as we start like making the efforts to listen to each other and hear each other, and knowing that it does take effort, and it's like thinking. People don't want to think. It's kind of like weightlifting, I was told, as I'm trying to learn, and again, seem, an effort. I can seem somewhat strenuous, and maybe I'll seem stupid to you, or maybe I won't be heard again, or maybe I'm wasting my time and your time. But to make the effort to say, yeah, what are we talking about, and how do we advance this dialogue? No, not monologues, but dialogue, so that I will be a benefit to Darish at some point in time. I will know what he's trying to do, and be able to help, because I will be sharpening myself. And the good thing I know is that if I'm worried about, I'm in pain and my age and my body, if I'm really making an effort to understand you, to be here now, then I'm not in my body at all. No, there is no pain. I'm in a creative space, and I think there's health benefits to the very thing that we're doing. And I wonder, what you think of, because I'm thinking so many, I don't quite get it, so many different web pages everywhere, and how are people finding each other? And I wonder if you ever got to meet, oh man, and these thoughts come so quickly, when you were talking before, and I thought, I really should network you with this other person who's doing similar work, because you'd really appreciate each other. When a nephew of mine got to go to a camp for children that had genius IQ, he said it's like all of a sudden he was on the right planet, like he found his tribe, like he could tell a joke and other people got it. They could laugh, and how exciting that was, and I think as we're trying to build this sense of family, because humor is something very local, and we want to get to where, we can be more joyful and play more and laugh more. Are we doing that with the fact that right now we're doing this, that you just asked me what I thought about all these web pages? Because I don't, a little bit, I can see how maybe artificial intelligence can pick up words and help unite people. And I know I always felt that's a big part of my mission in this world is to help people, help network people, as I, as I can recognize some genius in different people, and think, this person should meet that person, because they might really enjoy the conversation even more. And then I can listen and applaud. And in my Buddhist practice, the happiest thing is when you're wanting to help somebody and you bring them to a meeting, and then you start seeing how other people have ways of communicating that maybe this person can hear even more easily than what you're trying to say. And you see collective genius at work, and you see people actually getting help, and you know that that's what you were hoping for when you brought them to that particular meeting, that they could feel acknowledged and understood in ways that you weren't able to do it, but you could recognize, you could see it being done, and it's so exciting. Yes.
Great stuff, Barbara. Because yeah, the value of being understood is so priceless, so precious. It is an opportunity that's there for every single person. And there again, another great way to paraphrase, where my earnest nature comes from, to say, I really see that a lot of change can happen fast for a vast number of people out there. And I'm talking billions of people. And it's through this idea that if we get people more interactive, and if we break through this barrier and really these echo chamber bubbles, which 2 billion people on planet Earth represent one echo chamber bubble, and the other, 5.5 billion people are representing, another echo chamber bubble. And so when we get that more unified, when we get our world more unified, we're going to have a lot more of that people don't have to hunt around for the people that understand them when they tell a joke or whatever, that that basically we're one big happy family on planet Earth. So with that, I'm going to let that be where we steer to culminating this show, this podcast. Again, I'm Kurt Roskoff, your host today of the World of Ability podcast. My phone number, if you'd like to call or text me, is 262-372-1SKI. That's 262-372-1754. My email address, feel free to email me at Kurt at thedisabilitychannel.us. Kurt at thedisabilitychannel.us. And again, the background landing page for these shows is worldofability.com/shows. Again, hoping you're putting a subscribing to our YouTube channel, World of Ability Podcast Network, and whatever you can do on Facebook would be greatly appreciated with the Facebook page and the group. Again, the group says World of Ability. It's for everybody. So that's the way for our world. So now we're going to have a little fun. Emily is multitasking and finishing up a meeting with an integral conference by the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin. And at the same time, she's helping us wrap up this podcast. So I told her that she could end our show and end the live streaming at her whim as we get to these minutes here. So we're just going to have fun, and we're going to follow whatever happens with the display. Right now it says we're live and it says we're recording for syndication. But while we're waiting for that to drop off, Daryush, do you have any final thoughts while we still have things running?
So if there is anything, feel free to contact me. My contact information is just go to aranetllc.com, go to the contact form and send your questions. I will be glad to help respond.
And I want to so thank everybody for long patience. Really want to express my gratitude for that.
Yep. Great, Barbara. Thanks for being here. It's good to be with our allies, colleagues, leaders in the wheelhouse. And so Denise, we still have everything running here. Anything else you want to put out to our viewing and listening audience?
Sure. It's all about living creatively, being inclusive for all. And my company's name is Live Creatively. You can reach me at denise@livecreativelyinc.com, or you can text me at 516-847-4581, and let's be each other's resource. Thank you.
All right, everybody, this is where we go. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming. Come again. Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Love to see
Bye-bye.
you.
Recording